Podcast. How good do you want your life to be? It's truly about becoming the best version of yourself that's possible. This is Man vs. Marriage, the podcast.
Let's do this. And I'll just kick it off this way. In this episode of Man vs. Marriage, we're going to sum some things up for you.
Oh, okay.
We got Sum It Up with the Sumners right here on Man vs. Marriage. So welcome to this episode. Damon and Katoya, thank you for being here. And I want us to do some official introductions live on the recording because I think it'll be cool. And if we hate it, hey, we own these shows and we'll just cut it right out. But, you know, if you would, I did ask you, how would you like for me to introduce you? So after 14 years of marriage, y'all have kids?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, you have kids. You're taking your experience and you're making us better at marriage. And I love it. If you haven't had a chance to check out the podcast, go find it. You will get simple solutions. You will get everyday practical advice for how to work through things that come up in marriage. But if you would, maybe y'all would introduce yourself, and then Jeanne and I will do the same.
Wonderful. That was a really nice intro. Thank
It
you.
was.
We
It
appreciate
was
that. You go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Damon and Katoya Sumner. We are based here in Atlanta, Georgia. We've been together for 17 years, married for 14 years, 3 beautiful kids. We've got our son, Mission. He's 12. Liv, she's 8. Ever, she is 6. And yeah, we have been doing the podcast, Summing Up with the Sumners, for 2 years now. I hit 2 years this month. And yeah,
Nice.
we like to take
Congratulations.
appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Appreciate that. We do talk about a lot about relationships, parenthood in there, and really just try to every week give you a little bit of a couple chuckles, a couple insight. If you can walk out with a couple laughs and a little bit of value, then we feel like we're doing a good thing. So yeah, we're excited to be here on the podcast. Appreciate y'all having us on.
Yeah, absolutely. Katoya, tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, man. I was trying to pass that one. No, I am Katoya.
no.
I
He
am
doesn't let that slide. I try to.
Yeah, that is us. I am happily married to this guy, and we do have those wonderful children. We love doing the podcast together, and one of our primary things is the way we kind of even started the podcast was this idea of it was in the pandemic, hence the 2 years, and missing some of those connections that we had with others, and we were like, you know what? We're still going to talk to people.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
We're going to take them from from what we consider like you have your friends over and you're sitting at the dining room table, and then you finally realize it's time to transition to like a more comfortable space. And so that's the kind of approach that we take with the podcast. Let's get to the comfortable space.
Get to that sofa.
And let's just keep the conversation going to where we're like, all right, guys, it's time to
Kick
go
your
home.
shoes off.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's
right.
kind of my extra bit to whatever Damon just shared about us.
Yeah, I think that is fantastic. And listening to y'all's podcast, it's about the journey. And you guys really, this is going to be corny, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's me. You really sum it up very well. And I didn't plan on that, but I want to laud you with some praise because it takes a lot of courage to put your life out there in front of people and to show them that life is not perfect and marriage can be messy. Life is messy, but it's what you do. It's the value you place on one another and what you do to evolve and grow your relationship. And you just do it. You do it really well. And I'm grateful that y'all do it. Your chemistry is great. The way you guys kind of riff off of each other. If Damon doesn't agree with something or Katoya doesn't agree with something, you're in for a treat. So all of you, please go listen. Y'all got a book coming out soon or anytime soon? If you do, come back on the show, promote it, put a book out there for us to read. We would love it. But with that, we'll introduce. We'd be happy to introduce ourselves, honey. You want to go first?
Please, please.
Okay. Yeah, Jeannie's not going first. So we've been married this November for 23 years. We have 8 kids. Yeah, it's good. It's good. We have 8 kids. We have triplets. We have twins. Our 3 oldest kids have autism. So just various layers of life that comes at us. And about the 10-year mark, we had some terrible things happen. Our kid, just to give you a little bit of insight, some of our kids were sexually molested by babysitters. And one of our other daughters, she had like 20-something brain surgeries, and there was like seizures and emergencies going on. We had almost lost our house, and through having triplets, you don't even remember sleeping. You don't remember anything, and then the twins, and so we kind of got to the point where we were in full survival mode, and we were existing. We were roommates. I was out chasing money to provide for this family. My family really wanted my time rather than my money, but I thought I had to go make something of myself, and then I would be able to stay home and be a part of the family. And really kind of got to the point where it was like we were at a marriage conference at our church, and they said, "Hey, y'all rate your marriage." I rocked a 7. I put a 7 on that paper because I'm like, yeah.
7 on that thing, baby.
We're good, man. And Jeannie she says right now that she put a 3. History will tell us if, when we review, she put a 5. She just meant a 3. But it woke us up,
It for a little flex space.
We don't always remember things the same. Just saying.
That's fair. That's fair. But with that, it's like this is not what we signed up for. So we kind of entered into what we called marriage coaching. And with that, Coach Rita is the one who took us through that. And then my life changed so dramatically when I got my priorities straight. And when I put the value on my vows that I made. And then our relationship turned the corner over the course of the next 10 years. And that's where, like, this podcast, Man versus Marriage, was birthed. And for us saying, if we can make it, anybody has a chance to make it. And I think we've done some things to help people along. And I say that because you guys, you have a marriage podcast. We have one. You help me, and I greatly appreciate it. Who are you?
I'm the wife and the mom.
That was wonderful.
Oh,
Thanks.
You're so much more than that, honey. But with that, we're having you on the podcast today, and I assume that we're both going to get some listeners to this show that don't know us. And that's why I thought it would be important to articulate who we are. Because in this episode, like Damon and I talked about in the email, and like we talk about very openly in our podcast, we are good on many fronts. One of those fronts we're not great on, that y'all have some insight on, is money. And Damon had offered to talk about money and conflict, and those two hold hands for us. So money and conflict hold hands in our relationship, and we're a lot better than we used to be. But if now the floor is yours, and just start. If you got questions for us or whatever, we're an open book to a degree. If you want me to screen share my bank account, I probably won't do that. But other than that, just we're opening up our hearts to you, and talk to us about money, conflict, and wherever the conversation takes us, it will take us there.
Man, Quincy out here. Quincy out here. Well, we appreciate the invite. We appreciate the openness to just sharing more about, where y'all have been and where y'all are now. And it's really been encouraging to, we've had some good conversations. We actually had a conversation with another couple, another podcast the other day, and they've been refreshing, right? They've been encouraging, and I don't doubt that our time today will do the same thing as well. Money and conflict. I forget the stats. I had found these stats a couple years ago, but in no particular order. It was like money, infidelity, and I think sex could have been like the top three reasons why divorce comes, right?
Yeah.
And I haven't looked at the stats recently. I would assume they're very similar. And so, when you talk about conflict, well, conflict goes in all of those areas, right? Because of expectations, because of communication, right, or lack thereof.
Hmm.
And so, those are just two things amongst many that we have. And let's be very clear: we are no experts by any of the sense here, but from 23 years to 14 years, you all kind of learn different things, what works for you, what you try, what failed, what you kind of steal little nuggets you steal from other couples. You're like, oh,
That's
let's
right.
try that, right? We are fans of stealing good ideas from other couples. That's a lot of why we're here thriving for 14 years.
That's right.
Um, yeah, and so
Absolutely.
that's just a big piece of the puzzle, right, of that journey. And yeah, so I'm excited to dive into it.
Yeah. I don't know how we've sold you to believe that we're going to be the most knowledgeable on these
I,
topics
I
because
didn't say I was an expert in any of these emails. Quincy is just a kind person. We just big up and encourage it.
I'm sitting here like, hold on, wait. But the fact that you said that makes me really think about like the approach that we even have with the podcast. Because I am a person who I'm like, I'm
Right.
not an expert.
Let's be very clear.
I am sharing what has worked, what I
Mhm.
believe can be valuable, and I'm always down for the discussion around those ideas because
Yes.
each household is different. I can't imagine what it's
If we
like
added
trying
5 more
to
kids in this house,
plan and budget for a family of 10. I'm just trying with a family of 5. So, that all looks so different. So I would love to just have a fluid conversation and maybe some questions and dialogue as we just kind of continue through, this conversation through this
Yeah.
podcast.
yeah,
Absolutely. And that's kind of how I envisioned it would be. Just a warm discussion, like kick your shoes off, like you talked about, Damon.
No,
Just talking about
oh,
your philosophy on money, and you had touched on it because people were emailing in, and I think they were talking about, do people um, share money or do they have separate money, etc. So just kind of
mhm.
getting in, with as much as you're comfortable with, just talking to us about how you know money goes in your home and how you plan and discuss, etc. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot or make you feel uncomfortable.
not at all.
No,
But
Not at all.
okay, good, good, very good.
no, I was
Yeah.
just
So.
reconning. I was like, hold on. Wasn't uncomfortable. I was just like, the pressure.
Clear expectations.
Yeah, I was like, hold on, no. I would love to share any
Yeah,
of those
yeah,
things that we think, are beneficial. But
yeah. I,
yeah,
Yeah, I think one thing that for us that it ties into money, but even above money, is really for us has been so important is this mindset of one team, right? So this level of oneness, and so this framework, this umbrella for us, everything kind of falls underneath, right? From parenting to, date nights to communication to chasing dreams. And money is one of those things that falls under that umbrella of we are one team, we are collected together. And so that approach, that heartbeat is really how we come and look at money. It's like, well, for us, what's worked for us is been like, man, we're gonna put our money together. This is our home, this is our family, this is our
Yep.
money, and then we'll begin to budgeting, and we'll kind of allocate, and we'll put the little spreadsheet up and all that jazz here. But this is us coming together, and that togetherness and that oneness has helped us really just keep we feel like this appropriate perspective of our end goal to kind of build something great together. And money
Mm-hmm.
is just another avenue to do that. And so that's one thing for us has been really helpful and I think beneficial is having that perspective.
yeah, no, I agree. And when I put my brain around trying to form this flow. The first thing I thought was when you just said outside or above money, I think we like start with the foundational blocks and then we build into like how to like then handle the money. But I think that most of it starts on this like traditional foundation of, maybe there's trust or maybe there's spending habits, that everyone needs to kind of evaluate so that you're on the same page as a building block. So I would say that oneness and that team idea is like a foundational block so that we know how we can build upon the management of the money. And, you guys have been married longer than we have, but I cannot tell you how many money management methods we have probably tried over
error.
the course of being together for 14 years, from a cash system
envelopes
to different envelopes to,
Been
different type of websites.
yeah, to like somebody, oh my gosh, all the different apps that we tried. QuickBooks. I mean, it's been
around the block.
So many methods, and it's like
Yeah.
it reminds me of dieting. People have their stigmas on dieting, but it's like you can try as many diets as you want, but what matters is what works best for you. So you could be an advocate for whatever diet you want, but if it doesn't work for this person, then it's not a good choice of a lifestyle of change for them. And I feel like the same thing goes when we're talking about a method or something for money, but everything should give itself a good course. So all that to say, we are no longer doing a cash method. Get our money in our envelopes. That was so frustrating. I remember going to the grocery store and being like, what do I do? Like there's where I was in the wrong car or it wasn't in there. And then I was like, why are we leaving money in the car? Like this just doesn't make sense for us right now. And so you will trial and error with, whatever system works best. But I would, just all that to say that I think, and we're constantly still refining, our methods. But I think with comfort and with, time, we've realized our expenses. And so if I go back on those building blocks, I say, just one is trusting each other and understanding who spends how and what. Because I've always been more of a spender, and Damon's been more of the okay, let's own it, Jeannie.
Kate comes in the room and says, "I need shoes." You're like, "Let's go to the store."
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even think about it. Let's just go get it.
This is a need. Let's figure it out. And I've been that person in our marriage, and so Damon's had to keep us more accountable to our funds or splitting it between two different accounts. And just really taking in the account of a budget. I think, we could go into the practices, but I do think being on the same page and being on and understanding each other's habits and who has the strength to lead out in this area is really important. And then the other person coming in with that trust and trusting that this person can lead and then you follow. We have budgeting meetings and I'm like, oh, here we go. I have to change my whole posture toward it because I generally have a slight attitude, when approaching it. But I let
her.
Damon.
I like her a lot.
But I value, I'm like, all right, do it, lead it. I will follow reluctantly, but I'm following.
As soon as he says we got to talk about money, oh crap. Okay.
It's funny because we before lived in California. Now we just moved to Texas in June, and from California, Lancaster, California to Atlanta, Georgia, marriage is marriage. Money is money.
It doesn't matter.
And that's where it's at. And I think I would say probably the biggest mistake in the beginning of our marriage, there's the common phrase, you do what you see, so in Jeannie's house, mom handled money. So it's like, yeah, fine. Take care of the money. Didn't realize, what burden I was putting on her at the time, with this limited amount of income and how to figure crap out. And it's like, ooh, that was probably not a good choice. So we had to learn from that. And I go back and I did write those things down. It's about trust. It's about habits, and it's about relying on one another for your strengths. And I think the thing that gets difficult, because I can be so stinking hard headed when it comes to, the money. It's like, okay, look, we're all starving for the next 4 days because we didn't buy enough because we didn't have enough money. So now we're going on a fast.
Yeah, just because you can fast doesn't mean the rest of us can.
And it's and that probably comes from my upbringing. We were pretty poor where I grew up in Alabama, and we ate flea market food, and it was like, can roulette. You're opening it up. Oh, this one's for the dogs. This one's rotten, and this one we're gonna eat. So that's kind of the way things went from time to time. But then, and we've talked about this before. It's like, just to kind of give you the picture here, when we would go to the movies, I would get all bent out of shape if the kids wanted popcorn and something to drink, because I'm like, you should just be happy you're at the movies. And Jeannie's like, no, it's an experience. You're going there to have an experience. And I realized, after a while, I looked at it and go, I don't really like my way anyway. My way kind of sucks. I want to be more like you and create experiences.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're in the middle of now. We're endeavoring to create this different experience around money, because we're, like you say, it is not easy for a family of 5. It is not easy for a family of 10, especially in the current climate as prices just continue to go up. And, you're arguing about spending more at the grocery store, but you're not buying any more at the grocery store. So, that is just difficult in itself. But getting back to, it's about trust, it's about habits, it's about strengths. So I'm writing that part down, because I think there's a lot of value in that. And that's what we've been trying to do over the last several years. But there's such an emotional attachment when it comes to money. And that is where the conflict comes in. So how do you work through the conflict side of it? And, just talking about your relationship, and we can talk about some of the things in our relationship, and ultimately this will be put together so our listeners will be able to, learn from our journey.
Yeah. Conflict with money. You go first.
It's so when you definitely we talked a second ago about understanding and trust. There's an element as well. You talked about spending a little bit more, saving, walking, and understanding is an important piece when you're talking about money and anything in general, because the background, right, depending on, let's say, I don't know, you've been married for a year, 40 years, right, there's still implications and ramifications of your upbringing, right? You were alluding to the can roulette, where it's like it's still, those things still kind of ring around inside of you and continue to hone in on y'all fully being immersed into what y'all do together is something about it. I say that because, for myself personally, money wasn't really a thing that was talked about, really seen. I just knew my mom had no credit and bad credit because she said she complained about it every month, and so I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how that impacted her life and decisions. And then my dad, on the other hand, right, he was all cash. I was like, why do you have $400 in ones in the streets of Kroger? Like, what's happening here? So there wasn't really a lot of understanding of it, right? And then you put that on top of coming with another person in a relationship and growing, and so that conflict pops up. It's like we're on 2 different pages. I say all of that to say that the communication has been so important for us, because we've had to redefine money, what it means to us. I remember we were in premarital ages ago. Do you remember this? And we're talking about money in premarital. We're at a restaurant and with the other couple who's leading us, and we're talking about money. And Katoya, because our perspectives on money were so different, she gets up and leaves the restaurant, walks outside. I'm just like, what is happening? Is this not my bride to be? What is going on right now?
I think everybody was trying to tell me that what I thought was not accurate.
It was 3-1 at that moment.
And I was like, I don't like any of them. And I'm leaving. I'm a better
so
person.
fantastic.
Yep.
Oh, that is fantastic.
She and I would be trouble together. I like this. Exactly.
And so,
That
Well,
is-
we went into one in the beginning that said, just let him lead you. And I'm like, no. We don't do the just let him lead. We have two heads for a reason.
Exactly. Just let us agree. Let us move together.
Exactly. It's like blindly follow. No, she does not.
Yeah.
She does not.
No, I feel you. We shouldn't be saying that at all. It should be you are together and we need to
Yes.
work together,
Yes,
you know? And yeah, that's a whole nother podcast because that's all about like, roles and things like that. We have strengths and weaknesses as individuals that we can
Exactly.
lay down and work collectively with. I know what mine are, and I'm happy that he can fill in for some of those areas. So it's all right to balance it out.
Yeah, and that's where that communication
Yep.
continues to come in.
Yeah.
That's where that communication continues to come in, and having that. So I'll just start with that, because when the communication either wasn't as clear, more conflict's going to come there. And then you kind of talked about this yesterday. You can hit on this again if you want. But those unsaid expectations in lieu of money is really where pitfalls really begin to pick up.
Yeah, it makes me think earlier when we kind of listed out the three things that I stated.
The foundational pieces.
You said
trust,
habits, and strengths. But I also think about like the goals. Like what are you trying to do with the money that you have? And even tying that back into you for those experience. How do we experience money differently? And we are not individuals with a wealth. We're able to provide for our family and get all the things we need, and very grateful for that, but always wanting to have more income to create more flexibility and to create more opportunities for our family to enjoy life peacefully. And I'm saying that to say that even making small things big in your money is important. Setting one small goal and then celebrating hitting that goal, and then setting the next goal and celebrating and hitting that goal, but with no comparison to anyone else. Just your own goals that you're setting for yourselves, and seeing those milestones met because you're on the same page. You've made a plan. You've worked together, and now you can like see the fruit of that labor, the fruit of that toil, or not buying something that you thought you needed, or whatever that is, all to see like the advancement toward the goal that you're working toward, whatever that might be. It could be a bigger savings, or a savings toward a house, or we want to have this family vacation. Oh my goodness, family vacation with a family of 10. I'm still just trying for a family of 5. So those are bigger numbers, you're having to plan for, so you can try to create experiences. But at the same time, maybe we have a staycation, and we make this really big for our family. So I'm just thinking about money and the way that we experience activities, and then the way we just experience money and celebrate whatever
the goals you're trying to hit.
The goals that you make that are feasible and attainable, while along with those other building blocks that we just shared.
I think that's fantastic, and I think what is important, like especially for our audience as you're listening along, if these are not things that you've set out and you've articulated and you haven't done intentionally, then really you are on a path to nowhere. And for us, just early on, it's like, okay, honey, you take care of the finances. And then as our family grew, and she's still taking care of the finances, and I'm getting upset because the account's negative, or we don't have money, and really not bearing that burden together. I know y'all have some thoughts, which I'll ask you about coming up here pretty quick, but really you give a lot of great insight when it's about determining, where do we stand? Where is our trust with one another? What are our habits? What kind of strengths do we have? And then just closing that loop with what are our goals? because if you rightly divide those things and you have a plan of action and you articulate, eliminate the silent expectations, I think just
Mm.
that in itself is going to build a better foundation of money. It's taken us 22 years. How many days have we been married this year? To kind of get to this point where I have got to loosen up a little bit. And I had to come to terms with how I was living out of fear when it came to money, because I was so afraid that I wouldn't be able to provide for our family. Because Jeannie stays at home and takes care of this large group of individuals that we've created. And, and I'll go out and work, and now she's running people all over to work and school, et cetera. And just with, we had so many emergencies and difficult situations that if we didn't have the money to provide for something, I took it on like it was all my fault. When it's really nobody's fault. It's the situation, and how you work through that at the time is how you either build or kind of damage your relationship, and then what happens in the future. So what are your thoughts on separate money or shared money? I know you've already talked about it a little bit, but just coming straight out with, I've heard that there are people, like you hear their marriages where it's like, well, this is my money, that's her money. What is y'all's philosophy on money?
Yeah. Gosh. So previously, on the first through 10 years of Sum It Up Sumners marriage, I feel we've always just had two steady jobs. We worked like one primary job, and those direct deposits would go into our same exact account. And from there, we would have our budget, and we would do, we budget all our items out, and then we'd have our personal spending that we would pull from those funds. And then it's almost like you gave yourself an allowance as an adult. Probably sounds odd to some people if they're newly married or unmarried, but realistically, there's going to be flexible spending. You go out with your friends, you do this, you do that. You need a little loose money that's just for you. We, budget out money for the kids' expenses, and so we'll be like, and even family time or things like that. So we would budget it all out so that we knew, where the money was going. Now with just so many different pursuits that I think we've acquired over the years, we have a budget, and we make sure that money that we make goes into the account to expense for our full budget.
Mm-hmm.
Then if we have additional money, that is the money that we utilize for our additional business, as well as any personal spending, but it no longer really comes out of that primary budget. And I think that's just kind of like growth for us, because, we started, utilizing our own funds and trying to invest in these additional businesses that we had outside of our primary work that we did. So now it looks just a little bit different on those ends, on the personal spending and your own business management, but those funds never dip back into our standard home budget. So that's kind of how we operate. And I do believe when those foundational bricks are laid in a comfortable way, that everyone should be accounting for the same money in one account to plan for your family's expenses. And then from there, you can decide how every other fund works. My personal just advice to that. I've talked to so many people that don't do it that way, but to be really honest, it's because they don't have the trust, they don't have habits, they have so many unmet expectations in the money. And so it's like, I don't trust you to do well with this. You're not providing this. And it's much more than the money that's causing the separation of the funds. So in those events, I maybe it could be better for them to operate separately. But I would hope that they would be in a working, maybe counseling or discussions to see how they could come together. Because I do believe that money for a family should come together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a great
Tip
take.
my hat. Yeah. Great take.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. I think. Go for it, Damon.
I wasn't gonna say much. I was just gonna add that the umbrella of putting money together, really is a huge piece. Going back to that foundation of trust. Whereas there's this element of having talking with other couples, especially other like husbands, when they've had money that's separate. There's from these conversations, there's a level of, for lack of better words, division that kind of comes because it's like, all right, I had the rent and I had the water, I had the bills, and you had these four things, and then I'm gonna do me and you gonna do you. And there's an element of, again, respectfully here, divisions where that just keeps coming to my mind where it goes. There's a little bit of conflict from what I talked about at the beginning of our episode of this oneness, this one team. And
Yeah.
so I feel like when they're in, if you're listening to this and you're crushing it with your money separate, we tip our hat to you. But in my experiences, in my conversations, that hasn't been the case that I've seen, from several people living life and sharing life. And so that's just one thing I go back to, is fighting for this continued process to continue to be one team, one unit, right? One family, and having two individuals with two different perspectives, two different brains, right? But coming together to be united. And money is an aspect of that. It's you can really kind of put that mindset anywhere. It's like, from sex, like, I take care of me, I take care of me. All right, look, we good. All right, and keep moving separate. Like there's only so much unity that you're gonna have. Parenting. Well, yeah, you can stay up late, talk on your friends. I'll go to bed by 8. It's like, well, you do it when dad's here, I'll do it when mom's here. And there's only so much unity and oneness that's going to be
That's a
able to
great
be
word.
united. And so that is just something I just keep thinking about when you talk about this specific aspect of money.
Yeah, that is. I think that's brilliant. It's a beautiful articulation of oneness and what you got into this relationship for, in the first place, and what level of intimacy do you want? And like you said, if you're out there crushing it, maybe you're a superstar celebrity, and you and your spouse, have the millions and you have the agreement. Okay, that maybe that's someday we'll figure that part out. But I agree because looking at it, I mean, it's a sacred place. There are a few sacred places when it comes to relationships. Obviously, sex, communication, and money. And like you said, there are statistics that show that those things can really separate a relationship.
Yeah.
So having your mind around it, being one with one another in that area as well, yeah, it just like I say, you articulated it brilliantly. Anything to add, honey?
Nope, I'm along for the ride on this one.
You're along for the ride.
Uh-huh.
That doesn't sound like very much oneness to me. Anyway, I'm kidding. So when it comes to conflict, and like, let's say, Jeannie and I we're talking about money. We try to do it every week, but we don't necessarily always get to it. And there is an overage, and you're bumping heads, and now there's conflict. How have you been able to, like, if you've been in this situation, step outside of the emotion and just deal with what it is, which is it's numbers? How do you got any helpful hints on how to do that? Or, you know, I mean, we learn a lot from failing. So we're just talking about that
Yeah.
on a couple of episodes ago, and me and making demands of kids that are adults going to church or whatever. That was such an exciting episode. Um, tell me, how do you resolve the conflict when it comes to discussions about money?
Yeah. Um, I do agree with you when you said like through failure. I remember there's just seasons of like late fees, and I was like, if we get one more late fee,
Oof.
and if we get to
Ooh.
bank another
Ooh.
$200 or something,
That was a bad season. Ooh, that was a tough season.
we're like, we got to change this. This is not okay. Like, where are we missing each other? Because something's happened in this account, and this is not okay. And so we definitely have hit those in our marriage, and I'm thinking about that as a primary one because it caused us to be frustrated enough to do something about it. Two, to be frustrated with ourselves because we were both equally as responsible in different ways for what was happening. And then three, come up with a solution because there's no reason why we should be giving this money away. Nor do we want to see ourselves in the negative at all in these moments. So what are we going to do? So you're frustrated wonderfully at yourself and at each other, which moves you into action. And so I think that's like that one scenario I'm thinking about. But essentially, we got to do better. And so how are we going to figure out a plan to do better? And so, we believe very greatly in finding the right time to sit and talk. Like you said, if it's not happening weekly.
You guys still there?
Sumners.
There
We're
we go.
here.
There we go.
We've got a storm rolling up.
It was
this
us.
way, so it's knocked out our internet.
Whatever you said, rest assured, it's in the cloud, and I can't wait to hear it when the show gets put together.
It's okay. We stay rolling just to, hopefully, keep it going. So, if I remember, we were discussing how we, choose to handle conflict and about when it comes up with the money. And like I said, it really has started from general failures of being on the wrong page and wanting to see each other do better.
Yes.
And, again, that moment where you're like, this is not what we want for ourselves. So we have to come up with a better plan. We are pinky in the brain, and somebody's probably a genius and somebody's probably insane, but together we will make sure we can follow through with this plan. Yeah. Oh, yep. It's true. The last thing was also choosing the right times to have these type of conversations. So in the moment, is it going to be your best choice? Or on the phone when you realize you can't buy something or do something, that's not going to be your best time because you're not going to be your best self, right?
Right.
You're going to be frustrated. You're tired. You need the money, whatever it could be, whatever the situation is, choosing the right time to know that your spouse is available to listen, is willing to listen, and that you too, if you're the one doing the confrontation on it or bringing it to the table, is being prepared to have the discussion in a light and loving type of way. Because again, like I said, for us, it's we failed, and not you or me, but we failed. We want to do better. How do we come up with a plan to, improve this?
Yeah, I just want to add clarity on that. Those late fees. This was the era when they were sending it in the mail, using money to print and send it to you like I didn't see it in the email. I just wanted to let them know we did not appreciate that disrespect.
Yeah.
And you get that small little square card. You're like,
for the edges, the worst.
Yeah. The mailman's like, oh, not this again.
We saw it on the app, sir. We saw it on the app.
Okay. We got it. We know. We failed.
The other things I'll kind of add is right, trying, right, it's really trial and error to a degree, right, of trying a plan and giving it enough time to see if it's gonna actually, be solid
That's where
for
we're
you.
at right now.
Even in the midst of us trying a variety of things, it's been sometimes we tried it well and it didn't work. Sometimes we tried it after a week, got frustrated, wasn't disciplined, and then we don't really know if it didn't work or not. So like the plan we're in now, I think we're maybe in like week 3 of it, and it's been pretty good for us. What we're kind of how we're doing it and handling it, because we've been consistent and determined. And we've got goals, like just really talking money, just being transparent with you all and your listeners. We would love, depending on how America wants to work, to buy a house next year. And this is a big money goal for us.
Yes.
right? So we're getting our debt in order. We're saving up. We've got a plan. We've got a goal. So there is something that is another factor, a big factor that's driving that consistency, that's driving that diligence. Now there's not always something that big, right? But we're going to hold fast to this system in place that's working. And then I just, when you talk about specifically just budget, is really, we like to kind of see, okay, well, what are we making and what are all of our expenses? We'll sit down and not going to get into all the weeds of budgeting because it's so,
Vast.
dynamic with family. But just like, all right, what are all of our expenses? And then we looked at what were like those like miscellaneous things that were coming out that we didn't need. Oh, we really watched 4 subscription streaming services, but there's like 9 of them coming out the account. Like I haven't watched Peacock or Apple TV in ages, but it keeps coming out,
That's
right? Or or it's like 2 apps you had from 4 years ago with kids or whatever the case may be, and you're just looking up and like, we've lost $112 every month for the last 4 years because we haven't canceled Planet Fitness, right? And so really carving out and looking as a couple, right, where all of the like going back 90 days, 120 days on your statements and looking at everything that's coming out when you're talking about real tangible things. And then the last thing, which ties into, that overdraft stuff, we also looked at specifically when things were coming out, right? And making sure, right, we kind of looked at the budget.
Yep.
Okay, well, we know this comes out, large chunk of money comes out the 1st through the 8th. Right. And that's how easily a budget can get lopsided. And kind of all those things, when you talk about tangible best practices, I don't know about best, but practices that we've used, those are some specific things that we've done to really try to help us limit the conflict by being intentional with our conversation and communication about everything with our money.
Yeah. And I commend you on that. And I'm about week 3 or 4 into a brand new mindset when it comes to money, because like I realized about 10 years ago, it's not Jeannie versus Quincy. We're in this together.
That's it.
And my wife is not, and when I came to this realization, it really strengthened our relationship, which obviously means I was holding something back. But when I realized that Jeannie would not do something to hurt me intentionally, that really upgraded the level of trust that I had for her and for our relationship. And really, and also coming to terms with understanding this woman is trying to help feed 10 people and 4 dogs. And she's got her work cut out for her, so how can I be a part of the solution rather than a dark cloud of discrimination when it comes to the money? And then, just do my best to say, hey, whatever's getting paid out is getting paid out. And then how can we do it better the next time? Because, California was not a cheap place to live.
No.
Texas is also not a cheap place to live, although the gas prices are so much more attractive here than they are in California.
What part of Texas?
We're in Saginaw, which is like in the Fort Worth area.
Okay.
So there are
I'm
parts.
originally from Dallas.
Are you? Yeah, we're just right down the street from Dallas, about 30 minutes or so.
Okay. Yeah.
There are places in Texas that are much more affordable than where we're at, but there were some things we needed so that the kids had what they needed for school, ROTC, and those types of things. So, but just coming to that place and saying, look, because I've been all over the emotional map with, it's like, if this happens again, I'm done. I'm done with money. You take care of it again. And I step back and go, that's pretty stupid. So yeah, you can't do that, Quincy. But I'm in the first few weeks of taking a different mindset and really honing in on the idea that we gave ourselves about 6 months or so to really figure out what was going to look different in Texas, because we had 25 years experience, if you will, in California. So and I really like how you've articulated what the building blocks of a great foundation are when it comes to your relationship relative to money. And I'll be identifying those and like putting them in the show notes because I think it'll really help. And just coming back to what do you expect? What do each of you expect when it comes to money? And one of the episodes we just recorded, I put Jeannie on the spot and I asked her. I said, "Well, honey, what would if you had the chance to go back and have lunch with the 19-year-old you right now? What would you go tell yourself?" And then try to use that as advice for the newly married folks, that listen to our program, or the people that are getting ready to get married, and saying, "Look, silent expectations are such a killer when it comes to relationships.
Yeah.
And being more intentional is crucial. It's so crucial to putting the framework around how to have a healthy relationship and communication." So I think some of the other points you made that are fantastic and that I know selfishly are going to help me a lot is redefining what money actually means to you.
Yeah.
And then, choosing the right time. I have failed so many times at having a discussion at the wrong time. I mean, my timing, I don't know if anybody has worse timing than me. I'm sure somebody's out there.
Hey, we go on a date night and we're sitting at the table. You're supposed to be out having dinner, going to a movie. And he starts, "Let's talk budget." No.
Yeah.
Then-
Yeah.
No.
Just so you know who you're dealing with here. And then
He learned.
You're a man of passion, and that probably was really on your heart. But that's just not the time.
it was not the time. It was not the
We
time.
very intently watched the movie.
We were focused on the movie.
Have nothing to say.
Exactly.
And then just having that clear communication. We have a system called buzzwords in our relationship that we've developed over the last 12 years, thanks to our marriage coach, Rita. And now we can, if something's coming, and whether for Jeannie, if it's a change of plans, or me, if it's a change in expenses or whatever it is, we use, if something big's coming, it's like, okay, speed bump. Just throw the word speed bump out there. And it's like, okay, I can now prepare myself for what's coming. I'm in the right frame of mind. And there's no reason that it should be any different when it comes to money, especially because it's a difficult place, or it has been for us in our relationship. So, thank you for bringing that to light and just helping me get outside of the situation for a few minutes and getting a different piece of perspective on it. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys for being so open and transparent. And I want to commend you guys. I mean, before we've gone through marital counseling in our, marriage before too, and I commend you on doing that. With so much of everything that is going on and choosing to fight for your marriage, and then willingness to apply what you learn, and then come in and share on a podcast, and constantly seek to, be the best you that you two can be. It's commendable. I think I'm a very big advocate for, mental health and mental wellness and all of that. And we take on so much. And when you take on as much as you do in a marriage and a dynamic of a family, and just heck, if you're single, no matter what it is, it's the lives that impact us, whatever's going on in our world. It's important to make sure that we're mentally available to love and serve and give to those around us. So
Absolutely.
big shout out to you guys for, just really caring for yourselves in that way and making sure that you're your best selves for your family.
It was great to have you both here on the show. We deeply, deeply appreciate it. Hopefully sometime we can have you back and just let the audience learn some more from you, and let us know, let the audience know, and I'll put it in the show notes, how they can find you, so I make sure that they can get to you.
Yeah, thank you all again so much for having us. We really, really, really appreciate it. Very nice to just kind of have a good dialogue. You can definitely connect with us more. We are at Summit Up Sumners on Instagram, where we do most of our connecting. And there's also a link there for the podcast, for Facebook, and any other type of way you'd like to connect with us. And that's SUM It Up, Sum It Up Sumners, which is our last name.
Perfect. I love it. And then that'll lead them to where they can submit questions for your podcast, etc. Correct?
Absolutely. They can DM us. We're always a fan of sliding in those DMs and just give
Within context.
yes. Send
Um,
us those messages, that feedback, those questions, anything you know would love to share with us with. That's our primary way for us to communicate.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. Got a lot of love for what you do, and really appreciate you both coming on. It was fantastic to spend some time with you and to kick our shoes off and have a discussion. Thank you.
Wonderful. Right back at you. Thank you guys
We
so
appreciate
much.
y'all.
Yeah. Y'all take care.
All right,
Bye
you
now.
do the same.
Bye-bye.
The podcast. How good do you want your life to be?
You gotta live on purpose, for a purpose.
It's truly about becoming the best version of yourself that's possible. This is Man vs. Married, the podcast.